Hello everyone and welcome back to Towergate. It is day 274, Thursday, December the 7th, 2017. Well, you know, December 7th is Pearl Harbor Day, right? A day that will live in infamy. Well, I'll tell you, this December 7th is going to be another day that lives in infamy, and of course we'll be talking about that in the second half of the video. But for the first half of the video, let's go ahead and cover the important news events of the day, shall we? Well, it appears that we're learning another thing about Peter Benstrokenas. It appears that not only was he involved in the email investigations, the Russia investigations, the Hillary Clinton email investigations, deposing the rotten reverend and giving her immunity and all these other things. Not only was he involved in all these other events, it turns out now that we're learning that he was also the handler for the FBI confidential informant William Campbell. Unbelievable. You wonder, like, who is this guy? He's had his hand in every one of these things. And you just got to wonder. I mean, he was the number 2 man at the FBI in counterintelligence. But he was involved in all these things. And now we're learning that he was also involved as the handler for William Campbell. Maybe that's why they didn't ask him to come and testify. Him and Rosenstein. It's like, almost like, it's starting to look a lot like that Peter Benstrokenas and Rod Rosenstein, and probably even throw McCabe in the mix, maybe with Comey, were running this little game, this little inside game in all these investigations. And it's, we really need to get to the bottom of this guy and find out who he is and what he's all about, because he's a bad player. I got to tell you what. And you know, something else about this guy, and I have this theory in general about politicians, you know, because we're having all these allegations coming out about, you know, these politicians and other people. And I know I expect this from people in the media. I expect it from people in Hollywood. And, of course, we should also expect it, I guess, from members of Congress. But they should be held to a higher standard for a lot of reasons. But it just seems like to me that I've always had this theory that if a man will lie to his wife and cheat on his wife and lie to her, then he will cheat you and lie to you as well. You understand that? If a man will cheat on his wife and lie to his wife and family, then he will cheat you and he will lie to you just as quickly. I think that's why the rotten reverend, Bill Clinton, was so easy for him to lie to Hillary, although Hillary didn't care. But you know, the reason why he did it for so much, and the reason why he was such a good politician and such a good liar, he was so used to lying to his wife, you know, that it became natural for him. And they're both liars, of course, aren't they? But, you know, I got to thinking, you know, of course, we have all these accusations coming out. We all the members of Congress resigning and things and such. But you got to remember that we also, in this, amidst all these scandals, there's also this personal issue going on with what's his name, Peter Benstrokenas, that he was married. He's got a wife, and you have to wonder if his wife learned about this extramarital affair with the lawyer, the FBI lawyer that he was having the affair with. You have to wonder if she learned about this the same way we all did. And if so, then Peter Benstrokenas has not only got a lot of problems with all the things he's going to have to answer for in the weeks and months to come, and all that's going to be exposed about him, because we're going to get those texts, right? But also think about the fact that he was married, and if his wife learned about this the same way we all did, woo! Think what kind of trouble he was in. Can you imagine coming home? How mad your wife would be? It's one thing to find out that your husband's having an extramarital affair, and you may mention it to your best girlfriend or your a couple of family members or something, people close to you. But when the whole world learns that your husband has been having an affair behind your back, and you learn about it at the same time with millions of other people, think how embarrassing that must be. Now, I have a lot of women's viewers and subscribers, so I can certainly, if some of you women want to vent in the comments section, Maura, Patty, Spy Gal, Nada, any of you want to comment on what that's like? As a man, I can imagine it, but as a woman, I think it's different, you know. So, I mean, what's your general take on that, ladies? I mean, what do you think? I mean, what type of reception do you think Ben Strokenus got when he got home? What do you think it was like for him when his wife, what was waiting for him when he got home? Now, I actually had a guy I knew, I wouldn't say he was a friend, but a guy I used to work with. His wife had found out that he was having an extramarital affair, and he had been keeping it secret from her. And when he got home from work one day, she had changed the locks, and all of his stuff was on the front lawn. Needless to say, he was in a hotel for quite some time until he could get another apartment or something. So you can imagine, you think that Mr. Ben Strokenus came home and found his locks changed and all of his stuff on the lawn? He's at least on the couch, and he's not the only one. I'd say that Al Frankengroper's probably been doing some couch time because he's a married man as well. Mr. Conyers probably doing some couch time. You know, these are, you know, we talk about this stuff here as far as in the political sense and how it affects investigations and the politics and all that. But remember, these guys are married. They got to go home to the wife. Now, it's always been my opinion that when you get married, you should stop dating. When you get married, gentlemen, guys out there watching my videos, when you get married, when you put that ring on her finger and make all those promises, keep them. Keep them. You dishonor yourself when you do that kind of stuff. If you're not ready to quit dating, don't get married. But if you do, stop. Stop. Keep your word. Be a man. Be an honorable man. Don't cheat on your wife. It always turns out badly. Always. I had a friend who's a guy I really liked his wife, very nice people. He struck up an affair with the neighbor. They ended up getting divorced. They both had kids. It's just it's a horrible situation for the kids, for the families. 2 families destroyed, their lives turned upside down. And you can imagine neighbors. It's just, it's unfortunate. I just wish it didn't happen. But for you ladies out there, if you want to comment on what you think, how you would react if you found out on the radio. It's one thing that if your husband comes home and tells you, or if some friend calls you on the phone and says, I think your husband's playing around on you. But when you're, you know, doing whatever you're doing and all of a sudden you hear it come across the radio that your husband has been having an affair with an FBI official, an FBI lawyer, and he's mixed up in all this other stuff too, man, can you imagine how angry she must be and how tough things must be at home for Peter Ben Strokenus. He's finally getting his comeuppance. He's getting a lot of payback. Some of it we can probably hardly imagine. Oh, and believe me, there's much more. Much more to come from Mr. Ben Strokenus. He's had his hand in a lot of dirty, dirty stuff, and we're going to be learning about all of it. Speaking of Al Frankengroper, Al Frankengroper is expected to give a press conference tomorrow. He thought he could resist the pressure, just like Conyers. But I'm telling you, once they apply the pressure on you in the deep swamp, and they say, you're done, and if you don't step aside, here's some things that we can do to encourage you to step aside. Once they lower the boom and bring the pressure, they can drive you out. Now, I've been watching politics since I was 4 years old, and I can tell you that there's no loyalty in the swamp. I've said this before. There's an old saying, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. It's true. I can't tell you the dozens and dozens and dozens of times I've seen this happen in both parties. When you become a liability to your party or to the establishment, they turn on you immediately and throw you to the lions. Immediately. And this is what you see happening. This is exactly what you see happening, especially in the current atmosphere that we find ourselves in. And there'll be many, many more to follow Frankengroper and Conyers. Many more to come. You can count on that. We have this story coming out of The Intercept. Now, The Intercept, I look at that, you know, maybe once or twice a week. They do some good stories over there, but it's one of those sites where, kind of like InfoWars, I look at it, but I have a tendency to want to double and triple check just to make sure. But they're suggesting over there on The Intercept that sometime in the next few days that there is going to be a story that's going to come out and expose H.R. McMaster as being the person who's been working against Trump and possibly the man who was doing a lot of that leaking. Now, as you know, if you watch my videos, I don't like H.R. McMaster. He's a neocon. I know where he comes from. I know who his friends are. I know where he's been. I know what he's done. A lot of things, probably not all of it, but I know quite a bit of it. But they're talking about him having a direct line to George Soros. They're talking about him having direct connections to this group that does intelligence. It used to be called Blackwater. Now it's called Z or something. He's got connections to these guys. He was trying to work out a deal with them to do surveillance, was using that surveillance possibly to pass on information to Trump's enemies, that he's operating from within the White House as an enemy of Trump. And none of this would surprise me. None of it would surprise me. For some reason, Trump likes him. I don't know why, but for some reason, Trump likes him. I don't know. Can't explain it. But if this story is true from The Intercept, in the next week or so, we might be getting some hard evidence that H.R. McMaster is playing on the other team. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to learn that. Senators Ron Johnson and Charles Grassley have appealed to the DOJ watchdog Michael Horowitz to provide answers to some questions they have about Peter Benstrokenus. Now, Senator Johnson and Chuck Grassley are going to be pretty tough on this, and the thing I like about this is that they're really focusing on him right now, and not just this overall investigation. They're already doing that with other hearings, but they really just want to focus on this guy specifically, and they should, because of all he's been involved in. And we're now finding out, of course, he was involved in as a handler for William Campbell, the FBI informant, who's also going to be talking. But apparently, what's going on here is that originally we were led to believe that Mueller discovered these texts going back and forth between Peter Benstrokenus and Lisa Page, this lawyer, FBI lawyer. But it appears now there was actually the DOJ's watchdog division headed by a man named Michael Horowitz who first discovered that and told Mueller. Now, they have a couple questions for him. And the questions, they wrote him a letter. This is a letter that they wrote to this DOJ watchdog, head of it, Michael Horowitz. And they want to know, among other things, the most two important things, they want to know when was the Inspector General's office, when did they learn of the exchanges between Benstrokenus and Lisa Page? They want to know a date or a specific time when that was learned. And they also want to know when Mueller was informed. These are two very, very good questions, because we know the date that Benstrokenus was moved out of Mueller's investigation into the demotion over their human resources at the FBI. But what they want to know is how long did it take before Mueller did that after he found out about what was going on, because we're being led to believe that Mueller found out and immediately got him out of there because he was biased. This has got to be complete bullshit. We know it's got to be bullshit because he knew all about Benstrokenus long before he appointed him to his commission, just like he knew all about the other lawyer that we talked about yesterday. And just as we've learned, almost all the people on his posse are donors to Barack Obama, supporters and donors of Barack Obama and the rotten Reverend Clinton. So if he knows that all these people are, certainly it wasn't that he was surprised that Peter Benstrokenus was a Hillary Clinton supporter and hated Trump. He knew that going in. Andrew Weissman is the attorney I'm thinking of. He also knew that Andrew Weissman was a total Trump hater. So the idea that Mueller let Benstrokenus go or demoted him or kicked him off the investigation because he was tweeting biased, tweets or something, or sending text downing Trump and supporting Clinton is bullshit. That's just it doesn't cut the mustard. There has to be something else going on, and I think that that's exactly what Ron Johnson and Charles Grassley have figured out, and they want to get to the bottom of that. And so they're going to speak to this DOJ watchdog head, Michael Horowitz, and get the dates of when all these things happened so they can try to understand better what exactly is going on with Mueller. And he's got a lot of problems of his own that we'll be getting to. Question. What is worse? This is just a question that popped into my mind as I was watching a defender of Al Franken Groper on some YouTube video. And I'm thinking, so I'll pose the question to all of you, what is worse? the actual swamp monster, the lying criminal DC inside the Beltway swamp monster politician, or the people who come out and defend them? What is worse, the swamp monsters or the ones who defend them? It's kind of a deep question you have to think through. I'm a very shallow person, so I would turn this over to someone who's probably a little more thoughtful. Maybe Mr. Chopa can answer that question for us. Because I'm probably too... That's what my girlfriend always tells me anyway. You're so shallow. She says that all the time. I usually just say, shut up and bring me a beer. So anyway, yes, I'm pretty shallow. So yes, maybe Mr. Chopa can help us understand which is worse. Someone who is the swamp monster, the actual criminal, or is it the people who come out and defend them? Or is there any difference? It's one you got to think about for a few minutes, isn't it? The House Judiciary Committee has called Acting Attorney General Rosenstein, or Rosenstein, depending on how you want to pronounce it, to testify after scandals rock the Mueller investigation. So next Tuesday, they are going to have Rosenstein in front of the House Judiciary Committee, which does have Charles Grassley and Ron Johnson on it. They're the only two good guys there. The rest of them suck. But those two don't. And they're going to be digging into Rosenstein, which about time. It is about time. Because this guy's dirty. Dirty dog. I'm telling you. And so, what I like is that they're specifically going to focus on questioning him about all the problems with Mueller and his investigation, the people he put on his team, how they're conducting their investigation, the tactics that they're using, possibly why they're going after Flynn and other people like that while looking the other way at Rice and Powers and Clinton and Lynch and Comey and all the rest. But we know that Rosenstein was heavily involved in all of these things that are being investigated now. He's heavily involved in the witch hunt. And he's a pencil-necked, beady-eyed, little beta male sort of guy. And he's just, I don't know, he's just, those beady eyes and that pencil neck and that look he has on his face, he looks like a weasel. He looks like a rat. And I do hope that they really grill him. So next Tuesday, we'll certainly be looking forward to finding out how those hearings went and what we can learn from those hearings with Rosenstein. An FBI whistleblower has now told Representative Ron DeSantis, a member of the Freedom Caucus, that he witnessed a senior FBI executive suggest that the FBI had a personal that the FBI was going to target Michael Flynn and ruin his career. Now, apparently what's going on with this story is that an FBI whistleblower went to Ron DeSantis, and he told him that the day after Flynn was fired for apparently lying to Vice President Pence, Trump fires him, that the very next day that there was a teleconference with some of the senior executives at the FBI. And this whistleblower who's talking to Ron DeSantis told him he was there. And he said that in that teleconference, it was discussed that they should target Michael Flynn and ruin him. Destroy his career and ruin him. So now Ron DeSantis has this FBI whistleblower. Obviously, he's in the FBI. And he's now his name is not disclosed, nor is the names of the other people disclosed. The only thing that's being disclosed, and this story came from the Gateway Pundit, is that an FBI whistleblower has come to Representative Ron DeSantis and told him this, that he was there when this teleconference happened. I mean, if that's true, the charges against Flynn will be dropped. They will be dropped, and they should be dropped. Already they should be dropped, just because of what we have learned about Peter Benstrokinus and about the setup that meeting was. It's all falling apart, my friends. It's all falling apart right in front of their very eyes, and ours as well. We'll be cheering at the end of this. When this movie comes to an end, I promise you, we're winning now, but we're going to be cheering at the end. You're going to like the way this thing ends, I think. I really believe that. It's all falling apart. That's a very interesting story. Very interesting story. Again, you start getting whistleblowers. People start coming out of the woodwork. It's unbelievable how this happens. I mean, you have the Wall Street Journal attacking Clinton. It's just amazing. Next story. DOJ officials are now reading over 10,000 texts between Ben Strokinus and his mistress, Lisa Page. 10,000 texts? Man, they were getting busy, huh? I wonder how many texts Ben Strokinus sent to his wife. Wait till she finds out that his girlfriend got 10,000 tweets or 10,000 texts. She probably didn't get 5% of that or even 1% of that. He's in big trouble. He's definitely on the couch or on the lawn, sleeping on a lawn chair with a dog or something. But that's amazing. And as of course we already know, the ACLJ and the Judicial Watch have already done the FOIA request to get their hands on those. The Congress has already requested those 10,000 or so texts themselves. This is all going to come out. We may not get every single text, but believe me, with 10,000 texts, there's going to be some mighty juicy material there. Some mighty juicy material, and probably the worst of it or the best of it, depending on how you look at it, is going to be made public. We're going to learn about all of this. It's all going to come out. It's all going to come out. We can only imagine, because remember, it wasn't just tweets or text messages about the rotten Reverend Clinton supporting her, hating Trump. It was a lot more than that. These two were having an affair, so there's probably some pretty saucy conversation going on there between the two as well. Now, they may block that out, but we're probably going to get a lot of very interesting text to read, and I imagine that Mrs. Ben Strokinus might be using some of those texts in her divorce proceedings because she's probably going to divorce the guy, and she's probably going to take him for everything, especially if some of these texts turn out to be more revealing than what we even know. That's how things are going for Mr. Ben Strokinus. He's going to get stroked himself, it looks like, or he'll be stroking himself. One of the two, however you want to look at it, because he will not be getting any action at home. I can assure you that, unless he's, got something for the dog. Maybe he and the dog will have some fun. I don't know. He's the type of scumbag that will probably engage in that kind of thing. Well, we have Barack Hussein Obama, comparing Trump to Hitler in a speech. And then he also tried to take credit for Trump's good economy. There you go. Exactly what you would expect from Barack Hussein Obama. What a fraud. And he's going to be implicated in a lot of this as well. He's up to his eyeballs in that Uranium One. Remember, you can look at the rotten Reverend Clinton. She was one of the decision makers, and the Clinton Foundation got all that money, and Billy Boy got that briefcase full of cash. But believe me, Barack Obama was the final decision maker on that Uranium One stuff. He is the one that's going to be probably taking the brunt of that. Well, we just learned that Veselnitskaya has recently been interviewed by members of Congress. I don't know which committee, they don't say, but one of the committees in Congress has interviewed Veselnitskaya. She was asked 94 questions. We don't know what all those questions were, but we know that the general sense of some of the members of Congress who were there are saying about that hearing that she didn't come off very believable. They suspect that she may not have been telling the truth about some things. Specifically, one thing that's really curious is we learned from Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS the second time he testified. He said that he met with Veselnitskaya the morning of and the afternoon after the meeting at Trump Tower. Well, Veselnitskaya is disputing that. Veselnitskaya is saying she didn't meet with Glenn Simpson at all on the day of the Trump Tower meeting, which was a setup, which we've covered. So, there you go. Looks like Veselnitskaya is not as credible, or one of the two. Somebody's lying. Either Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS is lying, or Veselnitskaya is lying. So who are we to believe? Do you believe the blood-sucking Russian lawyer, or do you believe the scandalous fake news reporter? This is one you would never want to bet on, my friends. Do not place any money on that. The lawyer or the scumbag, scandalous fake news reporter. Who do you put your money on? Is it possible they're both lying? With these two, probably. It's just a mess. But the big story of the day I want to just spend a few minutes on. I could spend hours and hours on this, and I would like to bring in experts and guests, because this is such a major topic, and I'll probably spend more time on it in the next week or two once it has time to process through my mind, because right now, just the topic itself, and as I was listening to Trump deliver the speech today, I just had so many thoughts going through my mind that I couldn't hardly process them all or even think through it rationally. I mean, it was just a million thoughts going through my mind. And I'm speaking about Trump having a speech today where he says that we are now going to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And this just throws so many things into motion from so many different directions that you cannot hardly wrap your mind around it in one sitting. This is something that would take me, sitting back in my recliner for like 9 hours to deeply meditate on, because there's so many things going in play here. Just touch on a few of them with the few minutes I have left. First of all, this is something as long as I can remember, politicians, presidents especially, have been promising to do this, but they never have done it because they've never had the political courage. They've always been told, well, this could be very bad. It puts our allies in a tough situation. It could derail peace negotiations, which are never going to happen anyway. It could cause more terrorist attacks. It could ignite greater wars in the Middle East. All these things that we're told, that presidents are told could happen if they come out and basically admit that Jerusalem is now the capital of Israel, and we're going to move the embassy there. Well, think about this. This is like, again, throwing a million different things into motion. Let's just cover just a couple of them here real quick. First of all, you have one of the big factors, Erdogan in Turkey is not going to be very happy. He's a NATO member. They're the 8th most powerful military in the world. We're trying to keep them from getting too close to the Russians. We're finding that difficult to do. He's getting more cozy also, trying to get into the EU. He's playing 3 different sides of a fence. He thinks that we tried to orchestrate a coup against him. He may be right. We have a lot of issues right now. We have taken the nuclear weapons out of there, but still, Turkey is not really a country that you want to upset. There's such a just where they're located, they're like the turnstile to Europe, between Europe and the Middle East, and they're critically important to NATO, and you really don't want to upset Turkey, and that's one of the reasons why we would never do this, but Trump did it anyway, all right? It's also something, now the Saudi king, apparently the Saudi prince, is obviously on board with it. The Saudi regime never would have been on board with this before. They can create a lot of problems for us with OPEC and with the dollar and things like that. Of course, you have the Europeans, but the Europeans, they don't want to be put in this position. That causes them a lot of problems. I mean, this causes tremendous political problems for everybody. Because what do they do now? Do they come out to the Europeans? Does the UK? Does Sweden? All these countries. Did they come out now and somebody say, okay, well, we stand with the U.S. and we're going to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel? Oh yeah, and the embassy is going to be there and all this. See, this puts them in a tremendously bad situation they don't want to be in, and you have to look at where the pressure comes from in all of this. You have to remember that the most powerful lobby, in fact, the top 3 most powerful lobbies in Washington, comes from Israel. Israel is by far, in a way, the most powerful influence on the American government in foreign policy and in our media, and they have tremendous, tremendous power and association within the military-industrial complex, the defense industry, the media, and Wall Street, the 3 most powerful entities in America. Wall Street, defense industry, and military defense industry, the intelligence agencies. Israel is deeply, deeply involved in all this. They can destroy a politician. The Israeli lobbies can destroy a politician. And with the influence they have, with the banks, the defense industry, the media, they can destroy you. They also have that same, if not more, influence in the UK. And you can bet that Theresa May is absolutely pulling her hair out. You can bet that right now there's a lot of British politicians down in the bunker with all their experts trying to figure out exactly how to negotiate and maneuver their way through this minefield that Trump just laid out for them. So he really threw one into the spokes here, because there's so many different things being thrown into play. I got to imagine Merkel's probably pulling her hair out. Erdogan is probably steaming mad. He's probably smoke coming out of his ears. It's just amazing. And I do expect that we may see, an uptick in terrorist attacks. Probably could be here, could be in Europe, could be anywhere, because there will be a response. you can expect from on the Muslim side. But I think in a lot of ways, presidents and politicians, whether they be in the United States or Europe or wherever they may be, they're political animals, and everything to them is a political calculation. And it's weird for a lot of people watching Donald Trump because he's not a politician, and he doesn't seem to place a whole lot of he doesn't seem to care about the politics of things. He's like, almost like he said, well, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. It's the right thing to do. To hell, with the political consequences. Let the chips fall where they may. I'm just going to do it. And he does it. And then it's like he walks into a coffee shop, blows the place up, leaves people bloody, the restaurant turned upside down, glass everywhere, the thing's blown completely to shit. And then Trump walks out the door, dusts himself off, and walks down the street and looks for the next donut shop. I mean, it's like something out of a movie. He is totally doesn't care about the politics of anything. He's totally about, I'm going to do this. This is the right thing to do. I'm going to do it. He does it. He leaves this incredible chaos in his wake, and then he walks on down the street and moves on to his next target of what he wants to do next. He doesn't stick around for the political consequences, and if they do come, he just tweets, and he wins that war too. So the world is having a shock treatment, trying to understand and deal with this new American president who is not a political animal and doesn't care about the consequences of the politics. He doesn't care. He's rich. Even if he didn't get reelected, he doesn't care. He'll buy a private island and live out the rest of his life like a king. He doesn't care. He doesn't need their money. They couldn't buy him. At this point, they still can't buy him. He doesn't care. He does what he thinks is right and lets the chips fall where they may. And this is going to create a lot of problems for a lot of people in Europe and around the world. And quite honestly, I'm not Jewish. I don't have this personal love for Israel particularly. I don't hate them. I don't love them. I'm just I look at them like any other country. I don't like any other countries having a lot of influence on our country. I want America, to be America, let everyone do what they want outside, but stay out of our business. Well, I think we should stay out of their business, that sort of thing. I don't like the meddling in our politics, and Israel meddles more than anybody. So I don't hate him or anything. I don't like the Netanyahu. Didn't like his government. I think they may have had a role in 9/11 and other things. I have no love affair with the Israelis. The people there, I'm sure, are fine, but it's that government I don't care for. But I don't hate them. I don't love them. It's just I look at them like any other country, I guess. But they do have great influence here. But it's just the whole situation. But this may be also something that's very interesting, is that the Christian right was totally behind Ted Cruz, but now Trump has just delivered on something that those people would love. They were never Trumpers, and he just delivered on something that they love. They love Israel. How are they going to handle that? How are the neocons going to handle that? Because the neocons are never Trumpers. They hate Trump. They're trying to get him impeached. They're trying to take him out. But he just delivered on something they would love. How are the Democrats going to handle this? How are they going to work their way through this political minefield? Are they going to oppose the most powerful force in American politics, Israel? We'll see how they play it. It's all very interesting. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow night.